Trump's back, baby, and it's probably not going to go nearly as well as everyone thinks.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
We all saw this coming, obviously. In that Piers Morgan interview a few weeks back, Trump said it was illegal for him to comment, but that he had plans to announce something very soon.
The latest poll says if the 2024 election was held tomorrow, you would beat Joe Biden by 6 points and Kamala Harris by 11 points. In other words, you would be re-elected President of the United States. So are you going to run again?
Well, you know, for reasons of campaign finance and everything, I'm not allowed to say, but let me just say this. I think a lot of people are going to be very happy.
But even before that, was there ever any doubt that Trump was going to run in 2024? Seems obvious to me. There's one big issue though, and that is DeSantis. Like him or hate him, he's popular with the Republicans right now. Libertarian-oriented voters are happy that he refused to implement long-term COVID-related policies like mask mandates, lockdowns, or vaccine passes. Though they do tend to forget, he did implement an initial lockdown in the summer of 2020. While the more religious conservative types are happy about the Don't Say Gay bill that his government passed earlier this year. In 2016, Trump basically bulldozed through the entire Republican establishment entirely on the force of his personality. But it didn't hurt him that the Republican field was pretty boring aside from him. Was anybody really excited about Rand Paul or Ted Cruz or, heaven forbid, Jeb Bush? Not really. To contrast, DeSantis is relatively young, well-spoken, liked by the GOP establishment, at least in comparison to Trump, popular among the core rightoid voter base, and unlike all of Trump's 2016 opponents, he's charismatic enough that Trump can't just steamroll over him like he did with Jeb. Trump isn't stupid, though. He recognizes DeSantis as his main rival for the Republican nomination, which is why he's gone on the attack, nicknaming him, in true Trumpian style, DeSanctimonious.
Let's see, there it is, Trump at 71, Ron DeSanctimonious at 10%, Mike Pence at 7%. Oh, Mike's doing better than I thought.
And DeSantis fired back by doing nothing. No, really. Here's an interview that DeSantis gave after the failure of the red wave to materialize in the 2022 midterms. And it's long, so I won't play the whole thing for you. But when reporters ask him about Trump entering the race and Trump's comments and things like that,
We'd like to know what you think about Trump's big announcement and some of the less than flattering comments he has made about you.
The Republican Party is the real concern between you and Trump. And I know you're not at fault. How do we make it better?
he just doesn't respond. He talks about how he won the Florida governorship by the largest margins for a Republican in the history of the state, how the Republicans now have a supermajority in the state's legislature, and how Florida has shown itself to be a model for how to elect Republicans nationwide by appealing to the independent center. All of which, by the way, are true statements.
Well, the one place I think that people can look to as the blueprint is Florida. Because what have we done? I mean, we came in, I had a very close election. In fact, before I became governor, 2010, 2012, 2014, 2016, 2018, all the major races, governor, presidential, were 1 point or less for that time. So, and my race was less than a point in 2018. And so we came in to a very, very large, diverse swing state, and we led. And we were on offense, and we didn't shy away from big issues. We took on those issues, and we won victory after victory for the people of Florida.
But the Trump comments? He had nothing to say. DeSantis just isn't engaging with Trump baiting him. And it makes Trump look, to use one of his own terms, sad. Trump's out here flailing around, and DeSantis just isn't falling for it. 2016 was a lesson on how, if you engage with Trump's bluster, you pretty much automatically lose. Trump loves rolling in the mud. He's a TV guy. He knows how to do it well. And DeSantis is making Trump look worse simply by ignoring him. Hell, maybe DeSantis even learned from the constant 4-year leftoid meltdown over Trump's presidency, where everybody from politicians to journalists to pundits to YouTubers completely shredded their own credibility to take pot shots at Trump. And ironically enough, the person who didn't learn the lesson that Trump taught seems to be Trump himself. I'll talk about the Elon Twitter kerfuffle in a future video. Don't you worry, that story is hyper on my radar for sure. But let's just go over one droplet from it today. Elon unbanning Trump's Twitter account, the legendary @RealDonaldTrump. The day it happened, my Twitter timeline was full of retweeting the legendary old Trump tweets about fucked up losers and garbage Diet Coke, all of it. It was glorious. What was also glorious was the immense amount of salt unearthed by his return. Look at all of these blue check marks running scared. A lot of them are decreeing they refuse to use Twitter if Trump returns. And that really speaks to the mindset of these people. They've all stuck to Twitter because it was basically the place that leftoids always de facto won. You could find leftists calling for violence and whatever else. No problem. Their accounts remain unbanned. But if you're not a leftist, you were shit out of luck. And the crown jewel, the apex, was Trump getting banned after January 6th. This was their playground. Only their narrative was allowed. And now that Twitter isn't their playground, it's not even explicitly their opponent's playground. Leftoids are still allowed to spout leftoid nonsense as far as I can tell. They don't want to play on it anymore. Except they still kind of do, because Twitter is hyper addicting. That's why the goalposts eventually shifted to, if Trump tweets once, I'm out. Alright, dude. You always say you're done right after that one final hit. But, as it turns out, Trump actually hasn't tweeted once since getting unbanned. And apparently he's not going to. When asked if he would, he said he didn't feel the need to, because he now runs his own social media platform, Truth Social. And sure, if you're a Trumpster, you might think this is a Giga Chad move, but I don't. 2016 Trump would have come back to Twitter after getting unbanned. 2022 Trump seems to be too proud to do so. There's been a fundamental shift in his personality that I think makes DeSantis a better shot at winning the 2024 race. If you go back and listen to Trump's debates in 2016, he doesn't sound like a radical at all. He sounds like a 90s era Democrat, probably because he was a 90s era Democrat. But as you examine his behavior during the course of his presidency, I think it slowly became clear he did not know how to actually be the president of the United States. Now, almost all the Trump derangement syndrome stuff that you heard back then was false. Trump was never actually going to round up the Latinos and the Muslims and put them to the sword or whatever. But really, what did Trump actually get done during his term? The First Step Act was pretty good. Operation Warp Speed to kickstart the vaccine production seems to have worked out. He built, 25% of the wall? It's better than zero. The Supreme Court is a big one. But any Republican president would have probably made the same picks that he did. The actual accomplishments of the Trump administration are few and far between. He was overwhelmingly a seat warmer. This means that he wasn't actually a crypto-fascist, hidden and playing the long game, who orchestrated this masterful dismantling of American democratic institutions. At best, you can say he gave a limp-wristed attempt at the very end, while high on his own copium. If he actually planned to steal the election from the get-go, he would have done a lot more, a lot earlier. But this also means he didn't actually do anything good with his office either. And the reason he did almost nothing, positive or negative, is because Trump doesn't actually know how to lead people. Trump sold himself as this great negotiator, the art of the deal, guys. But over the course of his term, he became the most obstinate president in recent memory, barely willing to cut deals with Democrats at all. Trump's idea of a deal seems to be, I get everything I want, and in return, you get nothing. And yeah, okay, Giga Chad, but that's not going to get anything done. And that just doesn't seem to be the guy that Trump was in 2016. I don't know what changed. Maybe the nature of actually having political power fucked him up. You know, take the throne to act and the throne acts upon you. Maybe he actually was a Twitter addict like everyone else is, too terminally online to see the real world around him, a digital Denethor. Maybe he legitimately believed his own propaganda, that in his heart of hearts, he actually thinks he won 2020, that everyone loves him, and it was entirely stolen from him by a corrupt establishment. In fact, it's probably all three. In 2016, Trump embodied a heroic narrative. You've got the American Uniparty aiming for a completely banal election between Hillary and Jeb. Bernie, the outsider on the left, has already been cucked out of the race. Meanwhile, Trump, with massive popular support among the common working man, is a wrecking ball crashing through the Republican establishment, destroying political careers and dynasties in the process, overcoming all odds and all common sense to capture the institution from the inside. He's the rebellion winning against the empire. But what is the Trumpian heroic narrative now? That he's a loser? That he was robbed 2 years ago and he won't stop whining to anyone who will listen? You know, like, boo-hoo, the game was rigged against me, this isn't fair. Okay, let's accept for the argument the game was actually rigged against Trump. Heroes face unfair odds all the time. Part of the heroic narrative is having the game stacked against you and still overcoming. Your enemy is corrupt and underhanded. You are righteous and pure. You might take a few hits sticking to your principles, but by golly, good wins in the end and you overcome. Now, real life isn't a story, obviously. If Trump actually did have the election stolen from him, saying, haha, you didn't stick to the heroic narrative and overcome the impossible odds, isn't really a criticism. But what it does mean is that Trump's story for 2024 is no longer a heroic narrative, and the heroic narrative is what attracted people to Trump in the first place. It is frankly the only thing he had going for him in 2016. All that charisma that everyone loved, that was built atop the heroic foundation, that he was this outsider taking on the establishment, speaking in the voice of the common person, and now that's all gone, which is why when Trump prowls around the stage and calls DeSantis names, and DeSantis just ignores him and continues on diligently working, Trump looks desperate and pathetic. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, who knows. It wouldn't be the first time that I've had egg on my face, but I think the lifeblood of the MAGA movement is spent. GOP Senate candidates in 2022 consistently outperformed Trump in 2020. MAGA-aligned or Trump-endorsed candidates in the midterms either significantly underperformed their expectations or outright lost, while more traditional GOP candidates were more successful. The final death knell for the MAGA Republicans might even be Trump himself. If DeSantis wins the Republican primaries fair and square, do you think Trump is humble enough to stand aside? Hell no. He'll just run as independent, split the right-wing vote, and give Biden, or whoever, another Democratic White House. And if Trump does win the GOP primary, he will have to destroy the party's only true rising star in order to do it. In other words, unless DeSantis just chooses not to run and wait 6 more years for a shot at the big seat, Trump will have to destroy the future of right-wing politics in America in order to even have a shot at redeeming himself. And as we all know, Trump is egotistical enough to do it, which probably means, for the foreseeable future, the American right is fucked.